Hey everybody, welcome back to Northwest Small Batch Brewing. I'm Steven, and today I'm going to do maybe a more thorough review of the Mash and Boil, the Brewer's Edge Mash and Boil all-in-one electric brewing system. I have a few things to say, and yeah, so we'll get to that. If you're new here, take a look around my channel. I do a lot of videos on homebrewing, from ciders to different experiments, mostly beer. But I usually try to show beginning to end in the same video on how to make a particular beer or style. And if you like what you see and it's interesting or whatever, hit the like button. It really helps me out, the thumbs up. And while you're there, might as well subscribe. That way you'll get notified every time I put out a new video. So let's get started. First, because I'll probably get questions, this is not a homebrew. I just put my last homebrew on the keg and it's going to cold crash for a week. So you should expect a video on that next week. Or the week after. It depends when I air this one. Anyway, this is Firestone Walker, one of my favorite breweries, and I think it's called Parabola. It's a bourbon barrel aged whiskey stout. I think. Anyway, it's very malty, very malty. It's almost like they took a like a barley wine and put it into a bourbon barrel and let it age. Very thick too, very viscous and thick, almost like a syrup. It's good though. I like their beers. All right, let's get to the reviewing here. So I've already talked about some of this, but what kind of urged me to make another video on it is that I saw another video recently on a different brewing system that's very similar, called the Brazilla. And I mean, there's other similar systems that I haven't really looked into much, like Grain Father and stuff like that. But this one in particular, I noticed so many things that were improvements over what I have that I felt like, man, I got to do a video to just show what you're paying for, right? So the Mash and Boil is the least expensive, at least as far as I know. Last time I checked, it's the least expensive all-in-one electric brewing system. However, you get what you pay for. That doesn't mean you shouldn't buy it. I'm not telling you not to get it. I bought it, and it's worked for me for years. But there are little things about it that as you start to use it for a long period of time, you go, gee, why did they design it this way? Or it would be so much better if they would just have done this. And so that's sort of where I'm at. And it's very confusing to me because I also feel like it wouldn't have cost them much of anything to do these improvements. Also, I was really disappointed when I emailed them saying, hey, you guys came up with a new version of your Mash and Boil that has a different kind of malt pipe. Can I buy that malt pipe from you? And they said no, that maybe eventually I can get it through their distributor, but you can't buy it separately right now. And that really made me angry because I spent the money on their original, their original device, and there are other brewing systems out there that you can upgrade the parts as they break or get better designs. So in my opinion, their customer service is kind of disappointing as well. But it does get the job done, So speaking of the malt pipe, here's the malt pipe. This goes inside your Mash and Boil. As you can see, so first of all, I put these new legs. These came from Anvil. They aren't actually made for this malt pipe, but they work. And it was a little improvement I did. I made a video on it, so if you check up in the corner, I'll put a link to the video where I upgraded my mash pipe. Otherwise, it's the same, exactly the same. So the problem with this is it's solid metal all the way through. And the only way water, your mash water can get to your grain, boop, boop, boop. I don't know if you can see this, but it's right through the bottom. It's perforated, right? And that's it. That's the only way to get water into your grain. And so I feel like, my experience has been efficiency is really badly affected by that. Now their version 2.0, from about a third of the way down, has all these perforations in it now that allow the water to maybe flow a little bit better. I still think it's not a great design. I think they could do even better. Either make it perforated all the way up or just change to a completely mesh malt pipe, which would be even better. So I think that they still have improvements they can make. But that being said, even that small improvement should improve your efficiency. Unfortunately, you cannot buy that separately. You have to buy the whole new all-in-one version 2.0 mash and boil, which I'm not going to do. Yeah, so I don't use this anymore because of that. I don't use that malt pipe anymore. I just use a Brew in the bag. And because I switched to that, I invested in a pretty nice Brew in the bag. It's still mesh. It's reusable, but it's got handles on it, and it's much more sturdy. And I'll see if I can remember to put a link in the description if you're curious. There is definitely a huge difference between cheap Brew in the bag bags and more expensive premium ones. It almost feels like, I'm not going to spend that much money on a bag. But when you finally break down and do it, you realize it is a huge, huge improvement. All right, let's talk about the mash and boil itself. So here's the mash and boil. Let's start from the bottom up, shall we? So the Brazilla is empty. There's nothing on the bottom that's blocking you. There's no cover on the bottom that blocks you from getting into the pump and the different, like the element and the parts, basically. So theoretically, if something on the Brazilla breaks, like the pump stops working and you need to replace the pump or something, or the element goes out, it should be fairly easy to replace and fix. The mash and boil, hopefully you can see this, it's solid on the bottom, right? You can't, there's some screws, but I think if you take the screws out, you avoid the warranty, and I don't know how easy it is to get in there. But the point is, I'm getting wet, and I haven't used this for like a month, maybe a little less than a month, but still. Apparently there's some residual water in there from cleaning. So the Brazilla, you can get access to all that stuff. With this, if it goes out, like the pump goes out or something, you just have to replace the whole system, which is, again, bad design. If they had just left the bottom open, they could have saved money on the material or whatever. It just seems like bad design to me. Second weird design is so I'm going to turn this, and hopefully you can see it here. Sorry, it's a little bit heavy to turn, but there is a control panel right at the bottom that lets you set the temperature, and you can do different things on it. The problem is when you're either cleaning it or if you happen to boil over, you're in a world of hurt because this is not waterproof at all. And if it gets water on it and gets damaged, your system's shot. You have to replace the whole system because you can't just replace that, that one part of the machine. On the Brazilla, I noticed that this hangs or attaches onto the side up towards the top, and it has a cable coming from it, and you can just lift it off. So it doesn't even have to sit on the actual unit. It completely is separate, meaning that I would assume you could replace it if you needed to, but when you're doing your cooking and cleaning and everything, you don't even need it sitting on the actual device. So it keeps it safe because you don't have to have it near the liquid. All right? So there's that. While I'm here, let me also mention something that's already been talked about. If this gets too hot and it scorches, and let's be honest, I don't believe the element that's in here is a low voltage element, so it's not. It has a higher chance of scorching. It will detect that and it will shut the system down. It trips the system and it shuts it down. The only way to reset it, I don't know if I can do this, but there is a button under here that you push. It's in the center, and imagine if this is full of 7 gallons of water, ain't no way you're lifting this thing to get underneath it to push that button, especially if it's like boiling hot. So that is a safety issue and just a dumb design. Sorry, mash and boil, but really a dumb design. Let's continue on this thing, on this journey of, I mean, why they designed it this way, I don't know. And, let's talk about the pump. So the pump and the drain. I don't know if you can see. So here we go. So hopefully you can see this. The drain here on the front is a good, I'm trying to look here, it's a good inch at least above the base of your unit. Is the idea that you're just not going to use that last inch of liquid? Because I do. Since I'm using a brew in the bag and I use a hop spider, I'm not getting that much like material from the brewing process in the actual liquid. So I want every last bit of it. In fact, if I do a 5.5 gallon batch, I want all 5.5 gallons because I'm going to lose about a half gallon just from the trube. So I want that inch. I want it back. But, it's on the side. The other problem with that is when you're getting down to, trying to drain it, either by cleaning or just getting the last bit out of it, you have to tip it. You have to tip it like this to get more out of it. And the reality is you can't even get all of it out that way. If there's more that you want to get out, you actually have to pick up the whole unit and tip it. It's ridiculous. It really is. Terrible design. The Brazilla actually has, here I'm going to set this down because I think that's all I need. I want that in my face. But the Brazilla actually has the drain pipe right in the center of the pot. And it also has a slight dip. It goes down sort of like a cone. So two things that means. And I think what happens is the pipe connects with a T connector underneath and comes out. Here's the thing. First of all, that will allow every last bit of it to drain out. That's the first thing. Second thing is your pump is not like on this mash and boil. The pump has a separate entry hole. That doesn't sound right, but it does. And so your drain is just a drain, and the pump is actually off to the side. With the Brazilla, it's all one thing. So instead of having a pump that sort of attaches physically to the side of your, you can see, I can pull this back up. You can see how the pump comes out the side here and goes up, and it's welded on, not very well, I might say, spot welded, and then comes over the top. So on the Brazilla, the pump is separate. You hook up the hose to your spigot here, and it goes to your pump, which is external, and then you put the other end of the hose back over the side. Or I think it comes with a sparge arm just like this. But the point is, it pulls from the bottom here from the spigot. You don't need a whole separate hole in it just for the pump. And again, that lets you replace the pump if the pump goes out, or if you want to upgrade to a better quality, maybe more heavier duty pump or something. Easy peasy, right? Easier to clean. You can also use the pump to drain it faster if you want to. So, I mean, there's a million reasons here now that I've come up, not a million, but a lot of reasons why other systems have really pushed way beyond and come up with better designs than what this is. Yeah, I mean, there's also a false bottom in the Brazilla that you have you can pull it out and clean it so that if you're using a brew in the bag or whatever you're using, it's not sitting on the very bottom where the element is. On this device, you're relying on these, I don't know if you can see on the bottom here, there's these little feet on the bottom, and that will allow your malt pipe to set just maybe 1/4 of an inch above the base of the where the element is. So it doesn't have a false bottom. It just makes you keep the malt pipe a little higher. So many reasons why, if you can come up with a little extra money, I would suggest getting a different system. I'm kind of talking about all this because I'm getting very close to pulling the trigger on purchasing a different brewing system. So you'll be seeing that in the coming weeks, months, if it comes to fruition. And then my idea is that I would like to use this old system as my hot liquor tank. So let's say I want to do like 3 gallons of mash water, not mash water, sparge water. I can put the 3 gallons in here, set the temperature to 170, and it will hold it there and have it ready for me. And it'll be a little easier than trying to use like 3 different pots on the stove and checking the temperatures and all that kind of stuff. So it's not, I wouldn't completely have no use for this if I got a new brewing system, I guess is what I'm saying. So I mean, I guess the bottom line is if you have the money and you can spend a little extra or save a little bit longer to get a little extra, you can get a better brewing system. If you're desperate for a brewing system like this and you know you're not going to be able to come up with the money for quite a bit of time, like extra money to buy a better system, obviously this works. I've been making great beer with it. The design flaws in it are things that you can either fix by, like in this case, I use a Brew in the bag instead of the Malt Pipe. I did have to spend more money on that. I also had to buy a pulley system, and I had to put a ladder up to do it. So, I mean, it adds more effort and work to everything, but it's doable, right? I can still get really good efficiency now with this with just not using the Malt Pipe. Everything else on it works. I did have to purchase this piece separately. This is just a diffuser. It goes on the end of the hose that the pump is recirculating, and when it hits this, it causes it to spray out more. Not perfect spray, but it sprays out more, so you get a better, it's not just coming straight down in a stream like out of the faucet or something into your malt. So yeah, I mean, it depends on what your financial situation is. But if you can't afford anything better, this will work. And you can just slowly start making some of the changes I suggested to make a better brewing day for you. I mean, this has lasted me for a few years now. So it definitely works. You just have to be careful to not get that control unit wet, which means you have to be really vigilant about that. Don't use the Malt Pipe unless you have, you can't afford like a better system for a Brew in the bag. It's not much you can do about the scorching. I mean, you can turn it down. There's a switch to go from 1600 volts to like, was it 1100 or something? I don't know. But there's 2 different voltage settings. So you can turn it down, but I don't know if you're going to get a boil if you turn it down, because it's a lot for an electric system to try to boil that much liquid. So that's about it. It's not, a terrible system. It does make beer. You can make good beer with it, but there's a lot of improvements that can be made to make it easier to make better beer and make your brew day easier, replacing the parts on it if they go out easier, make upgrading parts on it easier. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. So this design flaws, in my opinion. So that's what I have to say about it. Like I said, I thought I had said all I wanted to about this device in a prior video, and then I saw the Brazilla, and I saw so many improvements that they have over what the Mash and Boil has. I just had to mention the contrast of the two, and it's not a commercial for the Brazilla or any other system. Just to explain, if you're looking for a brewing system and maybe you don't know, if you haven't used one before, you may not know like what things to look for. Why is this a problem or not a problem or that sort of thing. So hopefully that helps, and I'll be back in a week with some sort of video or other. So as always, have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend, and keep on brewing. See you later.